Welcome to the Millennial Network Podcast. Now your host, Coach Danny Renee.
What's up, y'all? This is your girl, Coach Danny Renee, and this is the Millennial Network Podcast. Right here, we have Carol. Carol, I don't know if you guys remember, but she was my very first guest on the Millennial Network Podcast, where we did a little bit over a year ago. And Carol has been doing some things. Obviously, we know her for real estate, but then within the past year and a half, maybe longer, she's become a master practitioner of NLP and certified breakthrough coach. So I'm gonna let Carol kind of get into that. So Carol, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So this podcast is obviously for new entrepreneurs, and they're trying to find their financial exit strategy through entrepreneurship. So us knowing, we were introduced to you for real estate, right? And then now you're a certified coach. Tell us, how did you get into real estate? And then with you getting into real estate, not a real estate, just an entrepreneur, period. And then how did that entrepreneurship journey lead you into NLP?
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. So thank you so much for having me. Hope everybody's feeling great today. It's been, entrepreneurship is a journey. And I think it's something to keep in mind is that we're always evolving as entrepreneurs, as business owners. So like my journey has definitely evolved. When I look back at like what got me into entrepreneurship, it's like, and I think a lot of you guys listening can relate to this, it's like entrepreneurship it's like you have this pull for more. Like there's this feeling that's kind of been with you. So something great that's popped up to me is like kind of like, you know how the Facebook memories pop up every morning? Like being able to see like where my thoughts were back then and what I was doing back then. So like one of the things I recently remember about a year ago that came out of my Facebook memories, it's like I was doing entrepreneurship while I was like in college and in high school. I would, help someone with a homework and they helped me with something else. When I was in college, I would buy $25, $30 of food and cook it and then sell plates for like $4, $5. And that was like really what was helping me truly get through college. So I feel that entrepreneurship has been pretty innate in like who I am. And it's just been about evolving and looking into how do I create this into a system that really works for me, right? And create that like freedom that we all seek. So when I was in college, I drank the entire Kool-Aid. So I was ready to, I went to corporate, I got a corporate job, I was doing well, and I got the golden handcuffs, so getting paid well, but not quite having freedom.
Right.
And I was with a great company at the time. It's just it wasn't a good fit for me. I was definitely a born entrepreneur. So I got introduced to real estate really through like the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. It was like my first book that I ever read in business. And if you guys have been following Danny, like at some point you've read this book, talked about this book, touched this book. So it's a little cliche, but the truth is like, it's the first one that got me into, like I can do investments, I can do real estate. So I started into real estate, wanted to do investments. And I found, buying and holding real estate, kind of like rentals and also flips, pretty difficult. And at the time I didn't know, I thought that I was just like real estate agents that didn't know what they were doing and they weren't instructing me. Then I found out I didn't know how to interview for the right real estate agent. It's a long story. Wow. But I ended up becoming a real estate agent myself because I was like, I'm just going to save all this money and do it myself. And then when I got into it, it was very challenging. I was like, wow, this is a lot tougher than I thought because as a real estate agent, you're not just handling someone's biggest goals and decisions, you're mediating between two different parties and the other party.
I think that's the part they don't think about much too.
Yes. Yeah. And like the other party, you're not even you don't even talk to the decision maker. So because I think really innate in me, it was like, as soon as I noticed how challenging that was, it was like, I got to make this work. So I went heading into real estate, became a top producer, real estate agent. And as I started going into that, I was like doing well. And then I found myself, honestly, Danny, repeating the pattern again. So basically I was answering the same questions. I was having the same, schedule, and I was always making money every year. But when you're an entrepreneur at heart, it's like you're always evolving. And so I looked around and I was like, I can only help so many people as a real estate agent by myself. And then it was like, how can I help more people, and how can I make this bigger? And will that other agent that I would train actually treat the clients the way I want them to be treated? And so I went through this like kind of crisis mode of, I wanted to grow real estate, and I loved retail real estate as a real estate agent, but I found myself in a ceiling. And then how do I cross that bridge? And so that's been literally the journey since our last call. That's how I got introduced to NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Okay. Now that you're introduced to NLP, there's a lot of people out here that don't know what NLP is. Like, I did my little bit of research, but tell us, like, what exactly is Neuro-Linguistic Programming? Did I say it right?
Yes, you
okay,
did.
Cool. So tell me about
that.
So,
I think we've all been exposed to Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I mean, really, if I give like a very broad answer, it's really the study of how our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings really dictate our behavior. And through NLP, really, we can do unconscious work to get the results that we want. So we can learn to model excellence and repeat that for ourselves and change the programming or the habits that we have. With Neuro-Linguistic Programming, we're working at an unconscious level. So when you do that into an unconscious versus your conscious, the change is instantaneous and is long lasting. So you think about it like when you're trying to do change, you're trying to do like a diet, for example, and you wake up and you go, okay, I'm going to do this diet. And then you don't wake up the next day and you go like, oh my God, I love salads. Salads are my jam. This is amazing. Like, I'm going to,
my fam.
Like, if you're consciously wanting to make that change, but unconsciously your body and like the receptors of like the feeling good that you were getting from all this, like all of that was still there. And so you're fighting that. Through NLP, we can really make that change on the unconscious level so that you can get the results that you want. And so the way it helped me was I needed to find out what were my stuck points. What was stopping me from truly building a team and expanding the good work that I was doing? What was stopping me from becoming a leader people wanted to stay with and become influential? What was stopping me from communicating, really? Because like communication is a two-way street. So if the other person didn't quite grasp what I was saying, then I need to be responsible for how can I communicate in a way that they understand. And so it was one of those that I was looking for how do I get out of this rut? I was really in some type of pit, right? It was a different pit. Before I was in corporate, I was trying to move into entrepreneurship. That's a whole different shift, right? Like that's really what our listeners are doing. And then truly you live that shift several times in your life, right? I don't believe I'm done with that. So through NLP, I was able to do the shift that I did from going from corporate into business, into a solo entrepreneur, into a team leader quicker and more efficient, because I was able to truly uncover where were my limiting beliefs, where were my limiting decisions, where do I have that, we call them in our study, in this body of work, we call them parts. When you really want this, like your heart is telling you, I want this, but then your head is telling you, I want this other thing. And you have this battle between what your mind and your heart is telling you. And that's exhausting. And as an entrepreneur, that takes away our creativity, that takes away our energy, right? So I went into this, I found out this event in just kind of word of mouth. And I was like, oh, well, what is this about? And at the time, the coach that introduced us to it, me and my partner, in her infinite wisdom, knowing that I wasn't looking for personal development, I was looking for business, she said, hey, you're going to learn to negotiate and you're going to learn sales. And this is going to take you to the next level. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm done. I went into it. But when I went into the training for being a practitioner, I realized it was deeper than that. So the reason they were teaching me how to negotiate and sell better is because I could learn to understand myself and learn to understand others. So once I got in and I saw the change it did for me, as soon as I was like on day 4 or 5 of the training, it's 7 days, and I was already closing more deals with the exact same marketing, with the exact same prospecting, but just more skills. I was getting a higher turnaround. So I went from there into, wow, like I can really do this. So all of a sudden, I set my mind to it, and using this body of work just created the goals that I wanted. And me and my partner, so I opened another company, and we went from 2 employees to 15 employees in just 1 year.
Oh, man, that's good. That's
man,
growth.
It's such exponential growth. And like, once you see what like you can do in a shorter amount of time, it's like, now you're addicted to it. So I was like, I've got to learn more of this. I have to share this with other people. So I ended up becoming a master practitioner. And now I do what is called breakthrough coaching. So really helping, let's say that someone's really trying to move from, I've been in corporate for 3 years and I'm really looking to be in business. And every time something happens, and they're like, why does something keep happening, stopping me from that? Well, more often than not, it's really our own projections and our own limiting beliefs and decisions that are self-sabotaging where we can go, because our business only grows to the extent that we do. So until we're not ready to do that leap into business, you're going to keep looping into your career. So now I have people be able to come to me and say, hey, like this has been happening. And they give me basically like a map. And I dig into using the techniques, like really what's the unconscious belief or limiting decision that's there, to help them get that, become aware of it, release it, and go live their true power.
Nice. So again, like you tell the story about like how obviously you've been an entrepreneur for a while and you had to have your breakthrough. Now things are going to be a little bit different from someone who's been an entrepreneur for years versus someone coming from corporate America. They've been used to the corporate America where, hey, you got to be here at this time. This is what it's like, like the corporate America control, right? What is the benefit of NLP? Or what are some things that you make known that you teach from that aspect? Because I'm pretty sure like there's a difference between the two, right? Or am I wrong? Like, tell me about that part.
Difference between the two, what?
Well, you mentioned in the unconscious, right? So with this being an unconscious things, I guess it makes sense. Like unconscious is what the unconscious is, right? But the mental of someone kind of out there grinding for years versus someone working a job and they're just starting a business, there has to be a significant difference, or maybe just a little bit. But have you noticed a difference? Have you ran into both scenarios?
That's a great question. So, it's more of like, it's different for each person, right? So there are levels, if you want to call them that, as to where we go. So for example, as you start making money, like when you're in corporate, you might or might not, and usually I'm gonna be kind of broad and stereotypical on this. I know that a lot of people in corporate already has a lot of skills, but what happens more often than not is like we're used to following that rule, right? That 9 to 5, this is what you got to do every day. So before you're able to truly hop into entrepreneurship and succeed in it, it's like you got to learn to be accountable to yourself, right? And so, yes, you can do it with grinding every day and learning and all of that. And also, for example, there could be a limiting belief or decision of I'm not enough. And I reject that for anyone that's listening. Everybody is enough. But if unconsciously, and you're not aware of it, you're thinking you're not enough to do this, what will happen is every time you start making success, you will project or self-sabotage because you unconsciously, truly inside don't feel like you're enough for that. And so that's how you start seeing people basically loop. And that can happen very much in corporate, or it can happen very much as you're beginning as a solopreneur, or as it happened to me as like in my shift to go into a team. Because again, there's certain growth, there's a complexity of thinking that we start learning. So, your audience is doing a fantastic thing by truly feeding their mind with like, hey, what's my next step, or how else can I be creative to like make that jump into entrepreneurship, right? And so there's a complexity of thinking that they have to learn. First, most people start doing it part-time. And so you start developing like, how do I do this on the side? So there's a difference between, have you handled this problem before and have you developed that complexity of thinking, versus, hey, I know what I got to do. I've learned the steps. I've been working on it, and I keep grinding and grinding and grinding, knowing that this is the right spot, and how come this keeps happening. So it's a difference between, we're just sitting there and we just haven't put our head down to work, to I truly have an unconscious limiting decision from my past that hasn't let me move yet into the full power that I'm able to do right now. Gotcha.
So I think you said a very powerful thing. You're like, when it comes to new entrepreneurs, one of the main things you have to do is be accountable to yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny, you hear the saying, be your own boss, right? We're all used, people who have had a job, they had a boss, right? So with them having a boss, you know how to respond to a boss, you know what their expectations, because the expectations usually come from a company, and then that company has a system in place. So when people say they're going to be their own boss, one, they've never managed someone else. Now you have the responsibility of managing yourself. And that's where a lot of the challenges occur, because you have to manage yourself. You had to be able to tell yourself to get up at a certain time. You had to be able to manage yourself and say like, hey, this is my system. One of the things that I'm learning in entrepreneurship is that most people don't have a system, and systems is what's keeping people from advancing forward. So with NLP, right? Yes, we're getting into the unconscious. Does your practice help someone maybe better understand the system? If they don't have a system, should they establish a system first and then seek like NLP? Like, tell me more about that.
So I think I'm gonna go with like, when do we seek NLP? And I would say yesterday. If I would have started this technique 7 years ago when I started business, I would be so far along. Because again, there's so much to it, but it's the science of really knowing yourself and others, and like how that behavior affects. And really we can model excellence, because if we know the process for someone to develop excellence, and we can model that exactly, right, then we have higher success. So one of the things that are fantastic that I like to teach, and we teach here in the team and we practice, by the way, everyone in our office has gone through an NLP practitioner training, whether they intend to be practitioners or not. And the reason is, I know that if they know themselves better and know how to uncover their decisions and get rid of them, they're going to succeed faster. So that's just something we provide for our people. So back to like when to seek it, I would say like now. So you can either start learning like small little things here and there on the side. You can go full in and go into a practitioner's course, or you can hire an NLP coach to truly help you, guide you by the way. So sometimes when we're starting, financials are an issue, and it's like, how can you become resourceful to start getting into really the science and this body of work that so many successful entrepreneurs use, because it's so proven, right? It's like, how can you get into it? So can you start for free on podcasts and YouTubes? Or if you're like, hey, I have more money than I have time, you hire a coach. Or if you're like, hey, like I'm ready to look at what I can do. Like sometimes people want to be entrepreneurs and they don't know what they want to do. They feel just stuck. And that's when, as a coach, I'm like, hey, yes, I can walk you through and like, let's find a breakthrough to get you clarity on what's personally important to you. Or you could also become a practitioner yourself. And like, I believe in this body of work so much that to me, it's like, hey, I would love to work with you and that you hire me and that I can help you with your stuck point. And also, I truly believe everyone should be really in this body of work, because not only you get to know yourself and others, but it's like you develop the skills of like building rapport. You develop the skills of like reading eye patterns. You develop the skills of, you know, having like how to really play perceptual positions when there's a situation and you're only seeing one side, like how do you see the other side? There's so much to it. And so what it did for me, it wasn't just did I get, it's not as simple as did I get my business from 1 employee to 15. It's like I was able to look back and be like, from the beginning as I started my entrepreneurial journey to now, it's like, what have been the learnings and what can I do right now with this problem to solve it faster, quicker, and more efficiently? So if I could go back, this is the only thing that I would change, of like, can I get introduced to this body of work? And most people are. You know, they just don't know that they're talking NLP, timeline therapy, for example. So Tony Robbins is the first person that I got introduced to through NLP. He started his journey as an NLP master practitioner, and then he built it into what he is. And he's masterful. He's able to command 5,000 people in a stadium and get them to change their values. So I did Tony Robbins, their UPW and Date with Destiny before I even knew that I could become a practitioner. So it was really cool when I went through my training to see all the techniques that I've learned through him, because I did follow him and fantastic what they're teaching, and like taking that and going, wow, so I can apply this in a smaller scale. I can do this exact technique with like my team.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with the DISC assessment?
Oh yeah. DISC personality types.
Yeah. So in one of my mentorships, he certified with the DISC, and he was saying the value and some of the benefits of DISC is, I guess, understanding where your superhero lie, right? Where are you at a superhero? Like, what are your strengths? Because I think one of the main things that he talks about is that it takes maybe double or even more the amount of energy to sit here and work on our weaknesses instead of taking time leveraging our strengths. So knowing that, and it seems like, the DISC assessment is a huge benefit. And obviously there's a lot of different, other personality type assessments and different things for you to learn yourself. Why would I come to NLP versus a DISC assessment? And is it something that once I study it, I get it and I flourish in life, or is it something that I have to keep nurturing over a certain amount of time?
Yeah. So the work is always going to be the work, regardless of what we're talking about. So as I progress in this body of work, it's more, so like, think about it like an onion. You have an onion and you like peel layers, and then there's like more layers, right? So when we're talking about like improving ourselves and being the best version that we have, I don't believe there's ever a stopping point to that, regardless of which way you're doing personal development. So I used to teach this personality profiles. I'm a DI myself, and I love teaching about it. Like the DISC personality profile like helps you learn more of like, it's a way to chunk up people into 4 categories to really know like where they thrive naturally and where they don't succeed as much as they want to in an innate way. And yes, it's like, it's context. So yes, it's better for you to focus on what your strengths are, but that's in the context of, for example, if I'm doing paperwork, I know that I thrive more with people, coaching, negotiating. That's my superpower. So I leverage out paperwork. But when it comes to, am I stopping myself?
You said leverage out. You said leverage out paper, meaning like
paperwork, for example,
delegate it or something.
Delegate it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Delegate. So for example, And if we're talking disc personalities, and I believe so, that person was in a podcast, so your listeners have heard about this before.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that question? You said what about?
So this was in your podcast. Your listeners know about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Great. So,
or if they don't know, obviously they can look it up. But yeah, it's a person. I guess the easiest way to just say it's a personality test. I mean, it's still layers that I personally don't know. I just know it's a personality test that gets very deep into the personality.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, our operations manager, Winona, she's a CD personality. So she is very good in compliance. So she loves checking off boxes, putting everything in line, creating the paperwork, making up the spreadsheet. It's what she thrives in. And then she can do sales. It's just not her strength. So she spends a lot of time on it, right? And so for me, being better in person and with sales and just innate gives me energy, it's easier for me to leverage out the paperwork part and focus on that 20% of like being in negotiations and in person. And for her, it's better to focus, and especially now that she's building her own business, it's like she can focus on providing that service of organization and paperwork. So when we're talking about NLP working our stuck points, it's not necessarily like, what are your strengths and your weaknesses? It's like, what is that programming that is not yours that is stopping you from what you want? Right. So it's not necessarily like just strength. It's more of, so
it sounds like therapy, to be honest.
it actually, maybe if you think about it, but it's not traditional therapy. So, So one thing that I don't do is like, I don't do continuous coaching. My results are guaranteed. So when we have a stuck point and we find it, we become aware of it, I work with the client to get rid of that decision and replace it with the decision that they want that matches their goals. And because it's unconscious, like we consciously became aware, but made the change in the unconscious level, it's quick and long lasting. So I really only follow up with my clients 2, 3, 4 times to guarantee the results, that everything is there. And then they're off to flourish, and then they'll bump into something else later, right? So like we all have, we could have the loss of a loved one. We could have sickness come. We could have a pandemic comes. Like there's going to be new stuff points that will reveal new, you could create new limiting decisions that you didn't realize at the moment was good, and then later on it's limiting you. So I'm not saying that it's a cure for everything in the world, but it's like, what was that stuck point? And if you're willing to do the work, then you can release it. So that's the difference between like, what is it, a personality, right? Versus what is a programming that was given to you that you adopted that is stopping you from what you want. So if, for example, like I'm Hispanic, and Hispanic women, stereotypically, at least my family, I was supposed to stay at home. Like that's their belief. And even though I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I had that fight where like, how can I be an entrepreneur and a mom and an entrepreneur and a wife? So, sorry, I think I lost it for a second. So through NLP, like I was able to uncover what was stopping me from truly going all out and to be the badass boss that I am, and still know that I can have a family and a husband, right? So that programming of, hey, Carol, like don't go so direct, or don't go so hard, or wear pinker colors, that programming was not mine, right? So now I'm more in ecology with who I am.
So do you have, you don't have to use like the actual name, but can you give us, I know you mentioned guaranteed results, like can you give us a case study, an example of outside of yourself, of a result that you guaranteed, a positive result from your business?
Yes, I'd love to. So I actually do have referrals from clients that they allow me to share. And so I share this directly with my clients before we start. If we're going to talk about entrepreneurs, this is a really great one. So this lady was working to be a coach herself. So she does big events, works with just amazing artists, like even like J-Lo, Shakira, like Usher, and she like handles the team that does like their wardrobes and all of this. And so now she was looking into coaching more people and creating a company that did that versus, you know, her just being within a company. And she couldn't find what was stopping her and what was, she kept looping and, okay, I'm about to step out, and then something would happen outside of her control at her moment that was stopping her from that. So when we sat down and we started going through it, it sounds, this is the reason this is so beautiful, because it sounds so unrelated to her issue, right? Her problem was, I'm moving from career into business and I keep regressing. What's happening? When I got deep and we went down into the unconscious and started working, what was stopping her was she was grieving her mother. And she hadn't gone over grieving her mom. And in you know, this is totally unaware for her at the beginning, but she felt like she couldn't succeed until because she couldn't show that to her mom, or she felt wrong moving forward with her mom. So like, this is like a little voice very deep in her head. So when we uncovered it, and it's like the client knows when that was it. When we uncover it and we walked through it, she was like, wow, this is what's been stopping me. So then we walked through a few techniques of like, hey, how do we process grief in a healthier way to the unconscious level to grief quicker? And so she's actually one of my testimonials, because as soon as she was done with grief, I mean, she just stepped into her power and has been coaching, mentoring, helping others, and now starting her own company. And it's one of those that, wow, could she the whole time she was thinking, I just got to stick more to my schedule. I just got to stick more to this. But she hadn't realized that she had a personal trauma that she hadn't released and was stopping her from being the best that she could be. Because unfortunately, in that unconscious programming she had, she couldn't do that without her mom.
Wow, that is a powerful story. And it's interesting you mentioned like trauma. I think a trauma is just a huge thing that so many people are suffering from. And I can see the power in this, because I always say, like, people with mental health issues or even traumas, if they don't understand that trauma, it could potentially, and they, you know, they want to have kids, they sometimes pass their trauma on, you know, to their offspring, and it just creates an ongoing, you know, ripple effect of, you know, issues that no one ever took the time to address. So you mentioned, you know, like the coaching, right? Now, say for instance, I'm an entrepreneur, or I have aspirations of being an entrepreneur. And you mentioned like some people, they just really don't know what they want to do. Is NLP something that they can get into business wise without any business experience? And can they start a business around that? Do you teach that?
Wow, it's a great question. So I'm getting so excited about it. So like it just helped me so much. I get lit up when I'm talking about it. So yeah, that's actually a beauty of NLP. If someone has literally no other experience in entrepreneurship, they can become NLP practitioners, start working at practitioner level, and then they can evolve into a master practitioner and start doing breakthrough coaching. Because the way that they teach this body of work is they install to the unconscious level, you learn, and then you immediately go and practice what you learned to make sure that it's installed. And then you go back
to practitioner level?
Yes. So okay. I don't teach that. I've the company that taught me is Recalibrate 360. And I vouch for them because it changed my life, my team's life, and people around me. So I promote them, and I think everyone should go to their training. But that's the first step if they want to do this themselves. Because like, think about it. It's like, what is your biggest asset? Like, what can you cash over and over again? Like when you feed your mind and you get skills that can be translated throughout any industry, that's what's going to make you powerful. So now you're not just tied to real estate, or you're not just tied to, you know, selling makeup, or like whatever it is that you're focusing on. Like this skills, this body of work is not just for one business. It's literally everything that it touches. So personal so that you can grow, so that your business can grow. And then using those techniques to truly, because like we're in the business of people, whichever business
That's
you're in.
true.
So when you have, you're working on mastering a body of work that it's really about knowing how people are programmed, it opens and gives you the tools for so many doors. So I've met many people at the practitioner trainings, because I go back and volunteer for their events sometimes, just to truly coach more people and watch them go through that process. Just like I did, because there was volunteers helping me through it. So they walk in and they're like, hey, I just know that there's more to me. Like there's so many people. It's like, I just know there's more to me. I guess I'll see what this called me somehow. I guess I'll figure it out. Right. Like they're just so confused. But as they start learning about themselves and how everything works, then they gain clarity, and they can literally jump out of the program to start practicing and actually making income with it. Because you're not training people on what you don't know. You're only guiding people in the things you already do know and what you did learn.
Okay. So in the sake of financial exit strategies, obviously someone can go into business doing this. Now, could this be something that helps them get that actual exit out of corporate America? And then even if they are a part-time business, like, is it something that it could really help them get that exit financially? Because I think you mentioned like they can eventually realize unconsciously what's stopping them. And then in your case, you ended up making more money doing the same thing. So how can they find, from both spectrums, how can one get the financial goals that they want?
So if we comes from someone who's in corporate going into business, so they can go either way. They can talk to an NLP coach and find out if breakthrough coaching is for them. Because we uncover, like, is this a stuck point, or is this something that you just haven't sat down and developed the complexity of thinking for, right? Or you can go straight into the training. If you wanted to be a NLP coach, you can, and start making money immediately. So like right now, it's just me, and I'm working to create a team of coaches, because now it's like I know how to create a business, so I can recreate it. So I launched a team. So we have a real estate retail team. And then I also have a wholesale and flip company with my partner. And then now, as we are growing and we're getting more and more clients, I'm getting to the point that I can only help 1 or 2 people on a weekend. And then my other 2 businesses are from Monday to Friday. So our next goal is going to be to create a team of coaches that now I can do their marketing and everything for them. And basically they're going to learn from me until they're ready to start their own business. So if they were to be a coach, this could be something that they start as a practitioner, then they can become a master coach. And then later on, they can coach other coaches. It just depends on what's in ecology for them, right? So like certain people would love to continue to coach forever one-on-one and be a solopreneur. For me, what brings me joy is to contributing beyond myself. So the more ripple effect that I make, the more energized I am to do business. And so that's why for me, the next step is to create a team. For most people in corporate America, the next step is to be able to just control when they get their money and how they get their money. And to becoming a practitioner, they can start doing that as soon as they finish the training.
So what about like, if, like obviously I have a background in sports and I'm brand new and I wanted to coach athletes. Could I create a specific marketing strategy using NLP for athletes, or even corporate American corporate executives, like just throwing ideas out there, because I know we're talking about entrepreneurs, but me getting into this business, can I find whatever niche that works for me?
Exactly. I love how you think. So all of those already exist. So I actually, one of my great friends, Ryan Brennan and Michael Chiara, are both trainers here in Atlanta, and they both use NLP to train and coach their clients or their athletes and help them. So when they're finding themselves, right? And in a point they're like, how do I push further? It's like uncovering what's stopping them and helping them through that. So whether that's, so most of them are going to focus on the health aspect of NLP and like to the unconscious level, how they do that. So yes, you can take this body of work and take those specific skills and use them in your business. So shout out to them too. I know that they do it here in Atlanta and they help their people immensely. And then what was the other one? So you mentioned the athlete.
Corporate.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Corporate professionals and executives.
Mm-hmm. So just I'm going to keep mentioning names because honestly, I love people and they deserve a shout out. So like Nicole Cummins is also right here in Atlanta, and she does a lot of work with corporate, and she uses NLP to basically finding the executive and going, okay, so if they're having an issue in corporate, usually there's the values are not aligned with their career values of their employees and their corporate values, right? And so she helps them align that, and then does a breakthrough with the executive to make sure that he is good and there's nothing that the executive is creating that's stopping the team, right? So that's also another branch. It's not what I do or that I focus on, but also it's being done. It's being done really well by fantastic people here in Atlanta.
Amazing. So if I want to come to you and I want a breakthrough session, or I'm interested in getting certified, what's the process and how do I contact you in that process?
Yes, fantastic. So I can be easily reached by social media. So on Instagram is I am Carol Yvette, and Yvette is spelled IVETTE. So I am Carol Yvette, and I have my Calendly link where you can just book a discovery call. And so whether that is becoming a practitioner or, hey, I want to join as one of your clients to do a breakthrough, the discovery call is really for me to gauge where the client is and what they need to truly guide them in the right direction. So being totally frank, not every client is a good fit for breakthrough coaching at the moment, right? And so if it's not, it's like, where do I guide them? And also, if they wanted to become practitioners, I'd be happy to connect them with the company and the coach that I use myself when I connect with them, so that they are in good hands. So they can go to I am Carol Yvette on Instagram, click on my Calendly link, book a discovery call, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so they don't need to say anything to you before on how they find you. They just go straight to the link and book a discovery call. Yeah, that's the first introduction.
That's the first introduction. It has a couple of questions as to like why is this good for you now, and like what are your immediate goals. And also when I hop on the call with them, it's really where I can hear their voice and their pitch and truly listen to their language to know where they're at. And that's where I start working with that body of work. We can do it in writing as well. But this is a quicker way where we can really gauge and see, are we a good fit, and what's their next step.
That makes sense. Okay. So do you feel like there's anything that we missed that you feel like people should know about NLP? Any extra PS?
Wow. There is so much more to this body of work that we can't fit on this podcast, but I would definitely say reach out to me and start getting your feet wet, and then also truly know that whether that's you, Danny, me, the company that's teaching Recalibrate 360 that I vouch for, like whichever help service it is out there, like and when I speak to your audience right now, it's like, we can't want things for you more than you want them for yourself.
That's very true.
So truly, I will fight till the end for someone. Like if they call and, they have what we call objections, which is like, yes, I want this, but X, Y, and Z is happening. I will fight with them. I will brainstorm with them. I would give them ideas and all it, like whatever I have to do to get them to their goal. if and only if they want it for themselves and they're going to do the work. So I know that that applies for you, and every coach that I know is respectable. So it's like, whichever route you take, just take the first step and be open to advice from the right people, right? And like fight for what you want. So if you're going to hop in a discovery call with me, like I'm going to give you where to go and what to do. And it's like, are you going to do that work? Because this is a do with process. Breakthrough coaching is do with. I can't go and program in you what you just like, it's not here, do it to me, right? As coaches, it's a do with process. So
they look a little off. It's like, well, do it to me. Like, wait, whoa. We're on podcast. We're on here. Okay, I'm back.
Well, hey, you don't know. Maybe you put that as the front of the podcast. I get a lot of engagement on this. Right. But yeah, it's a do with process. So like whichever route you're going to take is take the first step and truly give it your all, because we can't want this for you, and we won't fight for you more than you'll fight for yourself.
Perfect. I love it. Well, everyone, you hear this is Carol. You know how to reach her. Just go straight to her page. If you did not hear it, it will be attached to this video and this podcast. But again, this is the Millennial Network. This is your girl, Coach Danny Renee, and we are out.